Hello, welcome back to our YouTube channel here at ImageOut. And today we have a special guest. We have filmmaker Michael Thomas, who directed the documentary Gemmel and Tim. And so, welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for having me.
No, I'm glad we could have you back. We have you here in Rochester back in 2015, I believe, for Game Face. And I can't believe it's been 6 years. It feels like that was just yesterday.
Time flies, and it was a great, great, great time. I was happy to be there, and yeah, I wish I could make it this year, but yeah, I have great memories from 6 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we can still do the festival, in this time of epidemic, and we can still connect using this virtual platform. And so we're happy to have you again. And so, we talked about Game Face, and this is the next film that we featured here at ImageOut from your from 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 your works. I was just wondering, um, what attracted you to this project? Because it's obviously so different from your first one, which is Game Face, about athletes that are coming out. And so I was just wondering what attracted you to this project.
Yeah, I always like a new challenge, and sometimes that takes a while to search for something, because with a documentary you really have to be passionate about it. Otherwise, it becomes very, very tough to delve into such an adventure. And I remember I was already aware of this story for many years, but I was working on different projects at that time. And last year, I just finished a film, and that's when George Floyd happened. And the whole Black Lives Matter movement, it didn't start, but it came more to the forefront. And I started joining in several of the marches, and I asked myself, what can I do and to help in this fight and for justice. And I'm a filmmaker, so I was looking for projects to tell a story of justice. And we were of course dealing with COVID last year, and so I couldn't travel. So I was looking for something locally, and then I didn't have to think very long, because there was this story of these two people who passed at Buck's place, and he was never held accountable for it. So and there was also a tie in there, because one of the people who passed is someone from the gay basketball league I play in. So but I knew that it was a very, very sensitive topic. So I first looked into it very in detail, and then I first reached out to my friends, because I didn't want to take on a project without their blessing, because they're the ones who lost their friend, and I didn't want to step on their toes, and treat it with the respect and the dignity that it deserved. So first, after they gave me their blessing for me to take on the project, the ball started rolling.
So, did you know Tim? I'm assuming you're talking about Tim, because
Yes.
he's the basketball player, right? Did you know him personally, or was it just a connections through friends?
I got to meet him a couple of times through basketball at Open Play, but also going out in West Hollywood. But we were not very close, and one of the reasons for that was every time there was a gay games, he went, I wasn't there, and when I went, he wasn't there. And so, and he was also from another generation, so we always kind of missed each other. But his best friends are my best friends, so it's a very close circle. And and his stories are very alive of the person who he was.
So when you decided to take on the project, obviously it's different from a documentary where you're following subjects that are still alive and following their activities. this one is like it's almost like following the aftermath of what happened to them. Um, Obviously, there are challenges are different. Would you like to describe how that whole process worked for you?
Yeah, the biggest challenge for me was just not to disappoint my friends and to tell the story the right way and with the right dignity and respect that it deserved, like I said, because there's been a lot of reporting about this case, and a lot of sensationalizing and clickbaiting and not always correct reporting. So I really wanted to tell, first of all, the facts of what happened, but also shine a light on who were these two people, because we only get to hear in the media, what led them to Ed Buck's place, but not who they really were as people. So that to me was very, very important to humanize those stories. And that was the biggest challenge, just the pressure of getting it right.
I hear what you're saying. I was looking at I was looking at an article from earlier this year about the cases and how the media was reporting um, about the victims, not as victims, but as homeless people or drug addicts, as if they don't have any lives or as if they don't matter. So I guess what you're trying to do is bring to light what these people are, who are more than
Yes.
just drug addicts and victims of Ed Buck.
Exactly. So it's, who are these people, and but also, we're also not shying away of what led them to that situation. Um, and the reason why we're not shying away from that as well is in order to help people from preventing going down that path that Tim and Gemmel went on, unfortunately. But to be clear, they were lured into that path because of Ed Buck. So again, like the reason why we're showing it is to prevent this from happening again, because yes, we're shining a light on this particular case, but this is happening all over the country, all over the world. Party and play is real, racism is real, and those two meet all the time. So we hope that with this case, it can cause a domino effect for keeping people accountable and to prevent this from happening again.
Yeah, I was surprised how Ed Buck initially, anyway, seemed like he was gonna get away with it, like having two people die in his house within 18 months apart or around that time, and he wasn't even arrested. And it wasn't until a third victim that almost died that he was actually arrested, right? And
Correct.
I'm just amazed how, and I don't know if it's his influence in, he's an activist, political activist. I don't know if it's his influence or what, that he almost got away with it.
I think there's multiple reasons, and and there's also certain things that are hard to prove. So for me, it was also important to ask those questions out loud. Of certain things that are hard to prove, to just raise those questions in the film, and then the viewer can make their own decision of what they think played a part in it. Of course, there are the facts, but like I said, besides the facts, there are many stories, and I didn't want to shove like just a one truth to the viewer, because you don't want to disrespect the viewer and question their intelligence, because the viewer can see really quickly like, you're pushing an agenda here on me. Let me take this in and judge for myself. So that's why it was very important to show different sides of the stories, and then let the viewer make their own decision.
I imagine it was easier to find people to talk to with regards to Tim because his circle. But was it more challenging to find people to talk to as far as Gemmel is concerned?
Yes, and but one of my great friends, Michael Franklin, he's a producer on this project, and also my previous project, That's Wild. And he actually was connected. He knew some of Gemmel's friends, so that's like he was able to make that connection with them. And once we did the first interview, also, because their trust has been damaged many times over the last couple of years. Every time they thought they could trust someone, their trust was damaged. So they were very skeptical at first and asked a lot of questions, rightfully so. And but once they saw what the angle was, and really tried to tell the story of Gemmel in the right way and help to prevent this from happening again, they were on board. And definitely after the first interview, word of mouth got around that we could be trusted.
Ed Buck's conviction just happened like a couple of months ago, right, in July, which was amazing that you're doing this film, and it's almost like the story is still unfolding right when you were doing it. Did you attend trials for to be included in the film, or just to include in your research?
Yes, I attended the whole trial. It was very intense. The first day, I remember I showed up at the wrong courthouse. But it happened to be for a good reason, I think, because I was there with my camera to film the press conference at the beginning, which I ended up missing. But, I think it was great that I missed that because, you can't film in the courtroom. So I left all my camera equipment in there. And I think if I would have showed up with my camera, the trust would have been different. I would have just been, yes, I'm making a documentary, but I was also, again, like the people, they're my friends. So, I was part of that camp throughout that trial. And I think if I would have brought my camera during the trial, that vibe would have been definitely would have been different. But it was very, very intense, very hard, and it was such a roller coaster ride. But I'm happy that we were able to include that trial and the verdict in the film literally 2 weeks before the premiere, which is crazy how that worked out. But for the film, it was full circle, but it's never full circle for these friends and family, because their pain and suffer continues. But at least he was convicted. The sentencing still needs to happen, but I don't think he's coming out, and justice will prevail in this case.
So there's a chance that he'll be sentenced for life, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
so there was a part of that.
Charges.
What was that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. He has 9 federal charges. So he's going to appeal, but good luck with that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's happening.
There was a footage in front of the courthouse of Gemmel's mom, and she was talking about how this whole thing is more than just about a documentary. And I wasn't sure if he was referring to you being there recording the whole thing. So it's almost like I felt like I'm not sure if she's 100% into the project. I could sense some hesitation. Was that something that, is there some truth to that?
Well, there were a lot of media out there, but when she said that, I did feel all eyes on me. But maybe that was just me. But that's why I also wanted to include it in there, because for the viewer to realize that it is more than a documentary. That we were nearing the end of the film, but I wanted to remind people that, okay, this is not just a film, the end. Like, no, this is real life. This is what these people went through, and that's why it was very important to leave that in there. And I reached out to Miss Nixon, Gemmel's mom, from the beginning of the project, and she told me then that she couldn't participate because of the ongoing trial, and it was just not the right time or the place to do it. But she wished me all the best of luck. And I didn't get to really know her until the actual trial, and I'm very, very grateful that she was willing to have that conversation with me, and that we were able to talk about it and to talk to her. And after the verdict, I will never forget that she said, "Before I go back to Texas, I need to see your film." And I was like, "Oh, here we go." But she came and she watched the film. I was so nervous because, like I said, I really wanted to get this right. And after the film, I asked her, like, is there any, and I told her, we're literally, the premiere is in 2 weeks, so there's only so much I can change.
Yes.
So please keep that in mind. And she said, well, and I asked her, is there anything you want me to change? And she said, no, like you told the story the way it is, with the good and the bad, like the good and the bad. That's just the way it was. But for her, it was just very important to humanize her son. Like, he was more than this case, and that's what the film tried to do. And I was just, once she gave me her blessing, I said, I don't care what any critical review or is going to be. I got her blessings at that point.
Yeah.
So that meant the world to me.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, because I, when I just read about the um, when I just read about the victims in the news, it's just, they're faceless, nameless individuals, and then your film gave them a lot more life than I knew. Like, I didn't know that Gemmel was part of that ball scene and all that. And so when I started watching your film, I'm like, oh, this is going to be more interesting than I thought. Um, so I'm glad that you got the thumbs up from the mother, because I felt like there was a hesitation on her part to be part of the project, just because she wasn't as involved. Um, uh, I don't believe you have interviews with her directly.
Exactly.
So I wasn't sure if the family didn't want to be involved in the project, but I'm glad that you got her approval.
Yes, and that's why, you know, the original interviews, the angle was the friends, and both friends of both Gemmel and Tim. And luckily, God bless fair use, we were able to incorporate existing interviews that are out there from news footage or from all other parties. So that was important, and that then also became the stylistic approach, that the original footage and approach was through the eyes of the friends, and then all the rest was filled with existing footage.
It is also quite infuriating what was happening with the people in authority. That was, in a way, they were influenced by Ed Buck. I don't want to say that because I don't know for sure but it seems like they're influenced by the political clout of Ed Buck, because they're not putting forward any charges against him, and in a way supporting him. And I'm glad that they either lost re-election, or they're no longer in politics. Do you have anything to add to that? I don't know if you had any kinds of conversations with them.
Yeah, that was very important to show that accountability. Especially towards the end, they were ignored. Victims were ignored. Other witnesses, they were always ignored. And for them to lose re-election, and I do believe that this case played a big role in that, for losing their re-election. is very important. And again, I hope that this shows a signal to other politicians, so that whenever this happens again, that they realize that, oh, we have to take this serious, because this case was not taken serious for a very long time. And it's because of the community, people like Jerome, like Jasmine Kanik, a lot of people who put themselves behind this, that they made it happen, and hopefully that will translate in legislation and accountability at a higher level.
So when you were doing this film, obviously there's an exposure to the drug the drug scene in the gay culture. Is there anything you want to add with regards to that? Because I feel like it's not really covered by the documentary, because it's touched on but not fully. That wasn't the point.
Yes.
But I was just wondering if there's anything more you want to say on that.
Yeah, I feel there's some great documentaries already out there about those issues and the general issues. Like, I wanted to tell the bigger story through a small story. But also, with talking about drugs and addiction, I also wanted to be careful that it wasn't going to trigger someone who's dealing with it, that when they watch the film, that they're triggered and they want to start using drugs, because that's the whole point. That would miss completely the point. And I think that's why animation played a big role to to bring us into that world without really showing the graphics or being explicit, to show it again with that dignity and respect that it deserved. And it's also, Sammy, for example, talks about how addiction works and how, years later you can still be triggered. So those are the very important points that we felt was very important to include, and that could help to illustrate the bigger picture of what's going on.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the animation part, because I have that in my notes and I forgot to ask. I think it was great that instead of presenting graphic images, that you handled it differently and used animation instead to portray what was going on and the difficulties of addiction. Was that all along the plan to do it that way, or somewhere along the line you found a great animator that you could work with, or what happened first?
Yeah, that was the plan, but we had to find a great animator to do it, and I found a fellow Belgian, Remy Endau, and his work has been just terrific. He's been terrific to work with. He's very, very talented, and we kind of came up with those ideas all together, very collaborative. Not just Remy and I, but also Nick, the editor, Nick Lewis, a fantastic editor on the project. So it was very, very collaborative. And Michael Franklin, the producer, also pitched in with his ideas. So it was really a group effort and that resulted in that animation and the whole film.
So, what was your greatest takeaway from doing this film?
Well, you know what? Sometimes I hear people, there's actually a lot of takeaways, but I hear sometimes people say like, yeah, well, this film, it's going to be so dark. But once they watch it, they say, oh, no, it wasn't that dark. Yes, there's dark moments in it, of course, and sad moments, but it's also a celebration of who Tim and Gemmel were. And so, the humanizing part, to show that these are real people with, real backstories and friends, that was the most important part of this project. And hopefully by sharing this story, we can prevent this from happening again and hold people accountable in the future. So that's hopefully the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, I know there was one woman who attended the screening. We're hybrid for the festival, so we had a physical screening of the film, and we're also doing it virtually. And as expected, it's getting a lot more views virtually than in the theater, because some people are just not ready to be out yet. But there was a woman during the screening of the film that had to step out, and said that it's too dark, and I said, well, it's the reality, and sometimes you just have to present the reality. And if you are walking away and not finishing it, then you won't see the whole point of the film. So she went back in.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate that, Michael. And it's like you said, it is a reality. So, and that's what these families went through, and their voices and friends went through, and their voices were unheard. So it is a very important film. And yes, it's not a comedy, a light movie, but it is very important, and it is a big issue within our LGBT community as well. And it's something that we have to face and deal with. So that's why I made it, and I really appreciate it. Really appreciate that you had that conversation with her.
Yeah, well, because sometimes if you're not exposed to that life or that culture, of course it's gonna be too heavy for you or too dark. But it's happening. It's around you. You may not be aware of it, and this is it's a teaching moment. So, and with that, I'd like to thank you for another wonderful documentary film, and I'm glad that we could share it to our audience here in Rochester. And I wish you could be here again as a guest, but maybe next time. So, is there a project in the can right now that you're doing?
This is an extra motivation to make another film, Michael. No, actually, not at the moment. I literally just finished this. I need to take some time. Of course, I'm still doing some freelance camera work and editing, working on some smaller projects. But I need to clear my mind for a second, especially because it was such an intense project to work on, and it has to be something that you're so passionate about. Yeah, I'm still searching.
You need a little palate cleanser in between.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, thanks again for joining us, Michael, and I hope I get to see you again sometime soon. And much luck with the film. And I'm glad that we can highlight you at ImageOut again this year.
Thank you so much for having us.
Have a good day.
Thank you, Michael.